All right, everyone. So just so everyone is aware, we will record this session. So definitely want to make sure housekeeping rules apply. All right, so welcome, welcome, welcome. I am Sean Carrington, the National Commander for NAMVETS. NAMVETS is the National Association of Minority Veterans. I want to welcome everyone to the leadership session today. This is our first leadership session between NAMVETS and the VBRG. Ms. Caroline, do you want to, I know everybody probably is aware of who you are and stuff like that. I don't know if you want to say a few words, and then I'll go into my introduction, and then I'll introduce the speaker for today.
Yeah, I'll say a few words, Sean, thanks. So for those who don't maybe know the face of the name, I know that my calendar invite went out to the UPSers that are on today, but I'm Caroline Furs. I work over at the Flight Training Center for the Air District, and I'm the chair for the Air Region BRG, for the Veterans BRG. And Sean, who is hosting the session today, he and I kind of got connected and talked about how we can kind of work together and help each other, and we're really excited. This is the first kind of installment in what we view as like a monthly kind of seminar. And for those of you who are on the call who are maybe not veterans, you're more than welcome here. I know it got forwarded out to a lot of groups. As with all the BRGs, you don't have to associate or be, that associated with that group to be in the group. You just have to want to support that group. But to be honest with you, looking at the list of topics that Sean and his team have come up with, I mean, these are all topics that are great for leaders in general. It's not necessarily focused for the veteran or the transitioning veteran. Really, today's emotional intelligence and active listening, we could all as leaders use those skills. So I welcome everybody. If you are on the call and you're a UPSer and you'd like to join the Veterans BRG, you can either shoot me an email, I'll put it in the chat, or I can kind of walk you through how to sign up for our email list. But again, thank you, Sean, for setting this up and for kind of developing this webinar series. And we are super excited for what we have today. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. Yes, thank you, Caroline. Yeah, just to kind of echo some of the things that Caroline just said. Yeah, this is, veterans is pretty much, what we do. But who we are, we're all leaders, and I think these leadership development sessions is for everyone. We always like to say that a lot of times, whether you're an engineer, whether you're an infantryman, whether you're an IT, whether you're in the medical field, that's what you do pretty much, but who we are, we're all leaders. So I think these sessions are definitely open for everyone, and we welcome everyone to attend these leadership sessions. So a little bit about NAMVETS. NAMVETS is the National Association of Minority Veterans. What we do, we're veteran advocates. Our pillars are really on housing development, leadership, and entrepreneurship. So we're here to serve, and that's what we do. And that's why we talk a lot about leadership, because leadership is service to us. Right now, today, we're talking about emotional intelligence. Our speaker today is Mr. Wasef Mohammed. He's a combat veteran. He's a combat engineer. So go Sappers. So he wanted to definitely be our guest speaker today on the emotional intelligence. So what we'll do, without further ado, Mr. Mohammed, I'll open the floor up to you, and we'll get started.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to you, Sean, for doing this for our veterans and all the things that you do for our veteran community and our fellow soldiers, and UPS to providing this. And thank you for inviting me, of course. Well, a little bit about me. My name is Wasef Mohammed. I was born in Afghanistan, but I've lived in the United States for 32 years. I joined the Army right after high school. So I definitely one of my best times in life. I enjoy being a soldier. I enjoy every moment of it. So we're gonna move forward with the subject that we're talking about today. I know we're limited on time today, Mr. Sean. We're speaking about emotional intelligence. And as we look at those words, emotional intelligence, the first thing that comes to our mind always, most time, is emotional. When we're thinking about emotional, and that's a misrepresentation of that word, because when we're thinking emotional, we're thinking people being overly emotional. But the conversation we're gonna have today is about emotional intelligence. Now, what emotional intelligence it is being emotional at the right way, in the right situation, and be successful at it. Now, when we're talking about success, so there was a study that was done that they took successful folks and different genres and different jobs and different careers. So they measured all these successful people's IQs. So 20% of the successful group had high IQs. Now, on the other end, emotional intelligence, EQ, they measured EQs of this group. 70% of this group had a high EQ. So what does that tell us? Having a high EQ actually develops you and makes you successful more than IQ. And the other benefit of having an EQ, high EQ, and being able to develop that, IQ is genetic, right? It's our intelligence. We have it at 15, we get it. You do a test, 17, and the number doesn't really adjust. But with EQ, we can work on it. We can develop it, and we can make it better, and we can grow our EQ scores. There's plenty of websites where you can go check your scores and see where you are and where you need to be developed at. Now, okay. Now, what are emotional intelligence? How do we know or what to do with it? Now, one of the first things we got, two things. We got a self and social. The first thing we want to do is a self-awareness to see what kind of emotional intelligence do we have. What is our self-confidence? Sean, you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, I think someone's microphone, I think, is on. I hear it in the background.
Getting an echo.
Okay.
There you go. Let's go.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you, Sean.
Oh, just housekeeping rules real quick. I think someone, if you can check your microphone, we hear an echo during the recording. Okay. Okay, Wasa.
All right. So first, we're trying to find out our emotional intelligence, become aware of who we are. One of the best ways to find that out is, let's put it this way, we observe the world as we are. And we always try to, there's a story about a prophet kind of going through a town. Every time he would go through a convoy, he would send 3 different people into the town to check out the city. Whenever those 3 people would come back and he would ask him, what did you think of the city? Is it the kind of town we should go in or not? He would have a story. One of the gentlemen would tell him, you know, this town, everybody in this town wants to fight. Nobody wants to help. Nobody's helpful. Now you get one more person come back and this person tells him, you know, this town is, everyone is shy. They're all quiet. And, you know, nobody's friendly. Nobody makes friends. Nobody's talkative. And then he had the third person come up. When the third person came out, the third person like, you know, it's such a helpful people. I went in, people loved it. People invite me to their houses. I made several friends. We should definitely go check out this town. Now, this is the same town. We got 3 people going in and 3 people told us different stories. Now, the reason being, we do this. We become, and we assume what the word is as we are. If we are someone that at every scenario, we're loud or we're aggressive, that's what we feel like, that's what the word is doing. Now, if we are someone that go out there and we're considerate of others, and we ask people how they're doing, we make friends, we are genuine, therefore we feel like that's what the word is. Now, when we're in our workplace, now I come from a service industry and I do real estate now. So I deal with constant people. What are the most important things is to read people around you, what their reactions are, what the social is, and then have your action be appropriate to what their emotional status is at that moment. So when we're having a conversation with each other, when we're at the workplace or when we're at home, one of the biggest things is to understand what is the emotional state or what is the repercussions of what I will do and say is. If I am genuinely, if I go into work today and I say, Sean, how are you doing? We have to be genuine. We have to be there. When I say, Sean, shake a hand, you have to be present at the moment that you're having the conversation. When Sean speaks, you have to be there to listen. It can't be all the time where we're just doing this drive-by hi and drive-by bye without really caring and genuinely understanding what the other person is, the status is, or what their state is. Now, the important thing about knowing where we are, or where awareness of our social emotional intelligence is, it's just like a GPS. To know where to go, we have to understand where we are. That's the most important part. We can, when you put in a GPS map, it finds your location first, then it tells you how many turns and how to get where you need to go. Now, and when we're in that process, what it is, and our improving our emotional intelligence, or improving our job when we're at work, how do we do this? How do we improve ourselves? The way we do this is by, first of all, we observe ourselves. We become what's called an arc. I have an arc. You're kind of observing yourself. How do you act in these scenarios? How do you act in this situation? What is your buttons? What pushes your buttons? What makes you, snap? What upsets you? And then you genuinely work on those things and correct them. To improve emotional intelligence, it's just like improving anything else. It's practice. It's most of us, when we first time got in basic training, we might have been able to do 10 push-ups if we're lucky, right? But by the time we're done with that drill sergeant, most of us were able to do a nice little 50 something. But what happened? They gave us practice every day. Anything you do over time repetitively, you get better at it and you understand. And what's great about doing something that you get good at, you enjoy doing it more often. So it's a evolving situation. You make yourself better every day. How do you improve it? There's several different ways. You find, you observe yourself, you write down what triggers you. If you're someone that gets upset at things, what upsets me? There is in the books they talk about, find yourself in a movie. Find that character and you go, this is the kind of person, this is how I act. What do I need to do to fix this? Most of us, when it comes to workplace, one of the hardest things that we have, sometimes we don't take constructive criticism well. When someone, whether it's our management, whether it's our significant other at home, trying to give us some directions to do something better, we take it personal. And when we take things personal, we kind of shut ourselves in. Now, in the same token, we have managements and supervisors. When they're given directions to the employees or their coworkers and colleagues, a lot of time we're used to, and this that old school, when I was first the squad leader, or when I was first managing, go ahead, Sean, you got something, sir?
No. I'm just listening.
Go ahead. So you get used to, we feel like if we outburst and the louder we are, it's almost like you're showing your teeth and you feel like every other employee around me will do a better job because I was louder. I was, no, you see, and reality is, what we do is when we do a big outburst, when it comes to our colleagues and our employees and our coworkers, all we're doing, we're attacking them. And what happens when we attack people? They become defensive. And what happens when they lock in? When people lock in, so it doesn't matter what you tell them after that moment, initial moment, there's nothing else getting through to them. All at that moment is they want to just get away from the situations because you're being too aggressive. And what happens the next time? They just want to do barely enough. If they're employees, they want to do barely enough just to stay out of your way and your anger. Now, what's a better way to do this? The better way to do this is it's 3 steps. If you're an employee or your significant other, the way you say it, you're like, when you did this to me, I would like you to do this. Like it needs to be 3-step process when we're having that communication with each other. I understand it, and every situation is organic, right? The right way to do it in the right situation. If someone is taking, I would have a bartender at my family's restaurant that would take cigarette breaks every half an hour. Now, do I go yell at him? No, because next time he's gonna, when he goes back taking care of with the guest, he's not doing as well a job. And next time he will just hide better. Now, if I walk up to him and say, hey, John, when you come out here and you're taking these breaks, you have guests inside waiting. And when the guest is waiting, you're affecting the bottom line. So you're making them part of the solution. If you stop this situation, we both could benefit. So when it comes the same thing with hourly employees, when you do this, our hours fall behind, our shippings fall behind, then we have to work overtime or work extra hours, or we have to rush at the end and we have problems. So as leaders, if we get everyone involved with the solution with us and make them understand a little bit of the bigger picture, they will fall in line with us, and we're all working as one team instead of one person attacking and next person being defender, right? Because at the end of the day, we all do what we do is on our moral compass. That's the one thing that should guide us, what we do. Whether it's in the morning when we dress up, am I dressing up this morning because my mood is a certain way? Or am I dressing up today because this is what I would like to present to the world? What I like to do, because our moods tend to go, high and lows. So if we carry ourselves just with our mood, that's not we're gonna present different things to the world every day differently. But if we want to be consistent and be trustworthy of people understanding and people around us, whether it's coworkers, whether it's our own families, to understand what they get from us 24/7. We have to have a moral compass, right? We have to have a direction. This is where I'm going. This is my future. This is my vision. And if we don't have a vision and a future and a goal, it's like, again, getting on that GPS, not having a direction. If we just get in our car and just driving, where are we going to end up, Sean? We don't know where we're going to end up. We need to have a direction. And sometimes the direction comes from ourselves, and sometimes the direction comes from someone else, whether it's a supervisor, whether it's our leader, whether it's, our older brother. We give a direction to our kids. So directions has to come, and they all come in different mannerisms. And our reaction to the direction affects whether they're going to give us direction often, or they're going to say, forget it. This person doesn't want to get where he needs to get, right? Jack Canfield is one of my favorite writers. He does great books with the success principles. I'm sure many of you read it before. He tells his story. It says when he has his audience in his seminars, he has one of his audience members stand on the stage, and he stands at the back of the hall, and he tells the audience, he tells them, I'm going to walk towards you. Now, if I go the wrong way, you tell me wrong, then I straighten myself up. But what he actually does is the first time when the guy telling him, he changes his route every time the guy says wrong, and he gets where he needs to get. He gets where the gentleman is or the lady is that gets him there. Now, the second time he turns right, and as the person saying wrong, trying to get him back on the right, he kept turning right. He's not listening. He don't care, la. Guess what? He doesn't get where he needs to get because we're not listening to our direction, whether it's our supervisor, we're not getting that. Then the third time when he stands there, once the person gives him direction 3 times, he buttles up in a low ball and start yelling back. Stop yelling at me. Why are you yelling at me so much? None of those 2 other solutions got them where he needs to get. If we need to get where we need to get, I'm not saying be a sheep and just follow direction. I'm saying if your goal aligns and your moral compass aligns with the person, that is trying to get you there, and that person is communicating that with you in a clear way that it's not offensive and it's not aggressive, you follow. There's a reason. You know, we tell our children all the time. We were just talking about our kids. You know, we give them directions when they do something wrong because we care about their outcome. We care about their future. You know, we're not going to the neighbor's house giving them directions. You know, it's our children. We're giving them direction. So it's the same thing when it comes to our coworkers. So as a leader, we have to lead folks in a way that they can take it in. So they're open by taking in that criticism that we're giving them instead of being on an attack mode all the time. And as employees, we have to approach our leaders in a way that when they are giving us directions, they're giving us for our own sake because we both have the same goal, you know? So what do we do? What is the best things to do? What are the other things that we have to do to get our social emotional intelligence better? When we're in groups, a lot of time we don't read what's going on around us. As people are talking, we are waiting to what we say. You know, we're not really listening. While the person's talking, we are hearing things. There's a sound coming in, but most of us waiting what their rebuttal would be. What will we say after we're done? You know, we need to wait, listen, take it in, and then respond back if need be. Now, this changes the way people react with you. If you do this and you practice this yourself and just make a conscious effort of it, and you see that's how you're reacting with people, and you will catch yourself. This is the reason I'm saying this, because I've changed myself in the last 5 years, and I have caught myself. There's times when I'm in my head, I'm like, Wassim, shut up, let him finish. You know, it happens. It's always, these are things that takes time and it takes practice. And just like anything else, the more often we do it, the better we get. The reason I had to study emotional intelligence, because I personally got confused with emotional. I have a 5-year-old child. When he was born 5 years ago, he had a genetic deficiency. So I find myself getting emotional at every little bit. Every time I would look at him and, you know, he's got a little autism. So I was getting a little emotional, and I had to research like where this is coming from. As I was researching that, I ran into emotional intelligence myself. So, Sean, you got anything else, my friend?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll definitely add to that. I think, you know, like I said at the beginning, we're all leaders here, you know, regardless of what position you're serving at this time, everyone's a leader. So leaders must be guided by their principles, not their emotions. So I'll say that again, leaders must be guided by their principles, not your emotions. You don't want to be on that roller coaster of life. You know, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm upset, I'm pissed off, you know, I'm moody, all this kind of stuff. That's the roller coaster of life. So I think if your principles have to guide your day, your principles have to guide your life every day, you know. And what are those principles? I think everyone here, you know, you got to have certain principles. You know, am I going to be trustworthy regardless of you know, what I'm doing? Am I going to have that integrity? Am I going to make sure I make the right decisions regardless of who I'm around? Just to kind of pass on a personal story. I remember early in my career, it was a group of guys that I was hanging with. I don't know if anyone is familiar with the term BNOC, but it was a leadership school that we used to go to years ago. And so that leadership school, I got talked into, you know, going out. We were supposed to be on lockdown on base. So I got talked into going out with some friends. So of course those emotions were like, okay, yeah, let's do it, you know, but I wasn't being principled at the time. So we left the base, went downtown. I think we was up there in Baltimore at the time, you know. So it was a guy that was with us. I didn't know who he was, you know, and but I guess he was someone that needed to be babysitted every day. All right, so this guy kind of got out of control. He got into a fight. Turns out he got into a fight with an undercover police officer. So now, you know, my emotions are going crazy. So I went through everything from scared to nervous to what am I going to do now? Oh, my career is over. You know, I was just racing, you know. So we got to the base, back to the base, you know, my emotions are still going wild. So eventually, of course, the report came to the installation. We got, we was had to come and speak on the situation, what happened. So I go out to my car, and I'm just totally upset. I see myself, my career is over. I'm sweating. I'm nervous. I think I lost all my deodorant in about 30 minutes, so I'm just like going through all kinds of emotions. So my mind is racing. I leave it with this, I guess, to make a long story short. We were able to stay in the leadership school. Of course, I was at the time, I was in charge of my group. So back then, you had to see everybody from, your general sergeant major all the way down from brigade to battalion, all the way down to your company first sergeant. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to lose my family. I didn't want to lose my career. So my emotions were going wild. But from that moment, what that taught me was I had to stick to my principles. If I would have stuck to my principles at the beginning, none of that would have happened. But what I did, I let my emotions talk me into doing something with the crowd that I shouldn't have been doing. And I learned from that situation. 20 years later, never happened to me again. So I share that because I'm sure some of us probably have some people around us that will talk us into something. And if we get superly, or overly excited, sometimes you got to check that. Sometimes take that 3 seconds and say, okay, hold on, should I do this or should I not do that? Regardless of the situation, I'm sure all of us have that. So we have people sometimes in our ear that might cause us to step outside of our principles, and you got to check that yourself. So your emotions belong to you. So I have a quick acronym that I want to share with everybody. So I know when we talk about emotions, so the E stands for your eyes. So whatever you're looking at sometimes can drive your emotions, whether it's TV, whether it's reality shows, whether it's, Instagram, I know a few people, I talk to students all the time. Sometimes they're looking through Instagram and they want to become like that person that's on there. So their emotions are going crazy. So I tell them, hey, be careful because your eyes are the gateway to your soul. Of course, you'll say, so you got to protect what your eyes see. The M, that's me. That stands for me. That means I'm in control. My emotions belong to me. So if I get upset, or do I allow other people to get me upset? I share all the time with the students is that you can't control what other people do. You can only control what you do and your reactions to it. And I'm sure at your within UPS and or wherever, it's the same scenario. You can't control other people sometimes. Somebody's gonna come in there with a bad attitude, and you're like, okay, hey, how you doing? Good morning, good afternoon. You still be who you are. You control your own reactions, but you don't let them turn your day into a bad day. That's the point. And then the O, of course, options. I always like to say you want to look at everything as situations, not problems. I think if you look at it as situations, then you can overcome, whatever that situation is. But if you look at it as a problem, sometimes mentally it stops us. Oh, this is a problem. I don't know how to get past this. Don't look at it like that. Look at everything as a situation, and then it'll give you multiple options of how to get around it. And then, of course, the T is time. All stress is seasonal. Right now you think you're going through something, it's only going to last maybe a couple of hours, maybe a day or a week or something like that, but it's going to soon be over. So what you do, you don't make a permanent decision on a temporary situation. So time. So whenever you feel yourself getting outside of your character, you feel yourself getting upset, just remember, this is only for a moment of time. This will soon pass. All right. And then the letter I crack up every time I think about this. So the I is for either icon or idiot. I'm going to say, so the I is icon or idiot. So what that means, icon, of course, that's the image. What image do I have in my head? All right. So when you get up, when I tell everybody, you say, when you get upset, do I see an icon or do I see an idiot? You got to ask yourself, and I think when you ask yourself that, you'll probably soon calm down when you feel yourself losing your emotions. So icon or idiot. All right. And then, of course, the O is own your decisions, regardless of what position you have, regardless of what time you came into work, regardless of what you're going to cook for dinner. If I say, I'm going to do this today, own it. All right. Own it. I think because when you own it and it comes off of your tongue, then you can control your own emotions. I think when someone else is giving you that direction and then you don't say, hey, I got this, you don't own it, then that frustration will come in, that stress will come in. And then now because you're feeling like somebody else is telling you something that you already know, and then you'll get upset, So I want you to own the decision, all right? And then of course the N, and I think this is probably for all of us, just say no, just say no. Sometimes you just gotta say no. You know, I got a buddy sometimes, hey man, let's get together, 9 o'clock at night. I'm like, no, no. But of course, if I'd have let my emotions go crazy and I'd have went out with them, then the next day I probably would have been stressed out and frustrated because I couldn't get my mind right or get my mind into the game, whatever I was doing. So just say no. And I'm sure this applies to work sometimes. Sometimes we get an extra email, hey, Miss Erica, can you do this? You'll say, sometimes you got to say no. Sometimes, I'm sure Miss Dina, I'm sure you got to do the same thing. Sometimes you just got to say no. I think just when we assume too much and then all of a sudden we stress ourselves out, but we didn't own it and we didn't say no sometimes. All right. And then of course the S, stay focused. We live in a scrambled society today. That drives our emotions a lot of times, but we live in a very scrambled, distracted society. One of the things I always share with everybody, on your phone, when you're scrolling through your social media page, your mind is doing the same thing. If you look at Instagram and Facebook all day and your mind is scrolling, you're going to be so distracted. You're going to be so unfocused. That's going to bring stress to your life. All right. So what you got to do is you got to settle down and focus in, because if you don't, you're going to be stressed out. And then a lot of times you're going to have to reach out to somebody just so they can tell you to stay focused, and so I'm one to say, hey, stay focused, focus your day in, what are my priorities for the day? What do I need to focus in on? You don't have to come in and do a million things. It's probably 3 things that I got to get done today. That's what you focus on, and so as leaders and as supervisors, sometimes we got to help our people do that. If we say, hey, look, tell me what you got to get accomplished today. And you're like, oh, I got this, I got this, I got this. No. Well, let's calm it down. Bring the stress levels down, because I'm pretty sure you don't have to look at 1,000 emails today. I'm pretty sure, so there's probably a couple of things that we got to get done, because remember, distractions sometimes will take you off of your priorities, and sometimes that will just take up time, and then we'll find ourselves in a stressful position. All right. So that's what I always think about when I think about emotions. And I just wanted to share that, Mr. Muhammad, you could definitely add to that. And, but if anyone have any questions, we can talk about it. Or if anyone has any stories they want to share, that when you felt yourself, I like to call getting into an Incredible Hulk moment, when you start busting out of your clothes, and you start turning green, and then you count to 3, and then all of a sudden, what? I don't even know why I got so mad. I'm sure all of us probably have those moments. Anybody want to share?
So since anybody like to share anything about something, how they controlled or what triggered them? But since it doesn't seem like we got volunteers, so we'll go. So a couple of things.
Sure, I've got a war story.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm John, North Atlantic District. I'm here in New York. I'm an Army veteran. I was in the Army for like 25 years. Long story, but it seems like years ago I was at Fort Bliss, Texas, 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment, and somehow I was the artillery guy in an Armored Cavalry squadron, and somehow I became the squadron operations officer for a summer, filling the guy who was leaving, all that kind of.
Right.
And talk about stress. We talk about controlling the environment. Well, I had lots of the former and 0 of the latter. And for some reason or some reason, we had our squadron headquarters was in this basement while the real building was getting refitted. And we had asbestos piping all through the ceiling. It was just a mess. And it was hot and all those kind of things. And I walk in and something was just bothering me. And there was sitting behind his desk, Sergeant Major Larry Crouch. Now, Sergeant Major Crouch, big guy, tough guy. He joined the Army when I was 6 months old, 1963, right? This is old school. And he said something that just set me off. It wasn't really related to all my stresses. He just happened to be sitting there. So Sergeant Major Crouch, bless his heart, takes the full brunt of young Captain Mason's ire. And he sits there quietly, looks up, looking. I'm standing, he's sitting, and nodding as I'm just going off of my list of rants that probably were completely irrelevant to what he was thinking at the time. And he just listens. He listens. He probably used a lot of language and letters and things I probably shouldn't have used. And he's just listening. So I finished my little rant and tirade. And he goes, "You'll feel better now? Are we still friends?" "Yes, Sergeant Major." I turned around and walked out because he was absolutely right. He talking about controlling the situation. He had every reason to stand up and blast back at me or whatever.
Right.
But he, in his wisdom and his, his abilities, he just knew that I was having one of those afternoons or whatever struck me. And I was in the wrong completely. But yes, we still remain friends and so forth. But it's just an example how exactly what you said. The situation is really up to how each and one of us controls it.
Yep.
What we choose to do, what reactions we choose to take. And that's just a small snippet. And he was a great hero. And he retired later on when we were still in the squadron. Anyway, yeah. Long story.
Hey, John. Hey, I think all of us can relate to that, John. I definitely appreciate that. I think all of us can relate to that. But I think, the point that you made, if that sergeant major would have lost his cool and just started ranting it, coming back and forth, that situation would have never got resolved. So I think both parties, sometimes somebody had to just sit there and just listen in and just stay quiet. And the main point was we're still friends. We're still on the same team. We'll still in the fight together, and I think right there, whether it's UPS, whether it's, NAMVETS, whether it's whatever organization that we understand, or whether it's in the house, sometimes we say, hey, we're still on the same team. All right, get it all out. But at the end of the day, we're still on the same team. So I definitely appreciate that, John.
My pleasure.
I don't have a story, but I actually have a question. So, Wasif, you talked about the fact that they did a study on highly successful people, and they found that about 70% of them had this high EQ. And I have to think that it's possible that people are born with different levels of it, and or maybe based off the way they're raised. I mean, I'm looking at the words that are on the screen behind you, depending on how you're raised and what you're taught, I think really feeds into whether you have self-awareness, whether you have empathy. And I can tell you from looking at my kids, some kids are born with empathy or more empathy than other kids. And those social skills, is a big piece of how you were raised and what you were taught. So you have some people that are likely already high in emotional intelligence. And I think this is a more modern concept, I would say, at least in my experience. Like in the military, nobody taught me about emotional intelligence kind of as I was growing up as a leader. The first place I heard about it was at a previous company, but it wasn't really a company conversation. It was like one particular manager I had that started talking about this emotional intelligence. And I think it's because he had kind of developed an interest in it himself. So I think that probably John's story there, this sergeant major who was old school, who was back in the day, he didn't study emotional intelligence. But there was something about him that he innately was already had a high level of emotional intelligence that allowed him to, probably is what allowed him to become a leader, because I think those people naturally rise in the ranks because of those skills and the ability to, kind of have that inspirational leadership, which I think is fed into by emotional intelligence. So for, people who are trying to develop this, who maybe weren't born with it or didn't develop it through the way they were raised or the way they were taught, do you have some resources? Are there are there books or authors that you recommend? Is there, aside from, taking a course in emotional intelligence, are there ways that people can boost these skills for themselves?
Yes, absolutely. So you get several books that are on out right now about emotional intelligence 2.0. So what they talk about is this very thing that some folks already have, which is, like you said, the way you grow up and the way you brought up, you already have it. But there's a test that you do, and then it kind of tells you where you are and what you need to work on, and give you the directions of it. So what I can do, I can put in a chat, put a couple of book options as well. A couple of books I know Sean and I were talking about that we have read. And what's beautiful about emotional intelligence, anytime that you're I used to read a lot of success books. Then when you read emotional intelligence books, and they kind of intertwine together. So it's like, as you looking at leadership, like when empathy, right? What do we talk about empathy being? Just putting ourselves in someone else's shoes, right? So what is, if someone is, like he was being upset, the sergeant major, he's seen it before. He could understand what he was feeling at that moment. So he kind of sat there and let it get it out of himself. So, you know, being empathetic, that's one of the biggest things, especially when it comes to a social setting, when it comes to emotional intelligence is the biggest thing, to put ourselves in the other person's shoes, to see where they coming from and where their situation is. And a lot of time without our reaction, separating the two out, kind of figure out the intellect of it and why is this person being this way? You know, is this is a personal attack or this is a something that there's so that's one of the biggest thing is, and to make ourselves emotionally intelligent, another thing we have to do, make ourselves approachable. You know, don't be cold and closed off. You keep yourself approachable. What are your supervising or leading? You know, if your coworkers and your employees can walk up to you, and if they have a question or a concern, then you're not at the level you need to be. You know, you got to make yourself approachable. And we discussed the whole, you know, not a good value is just being simply a good listener. Whenever someone's talking to you, you just, you know, you just listen, you know, instead of coming to judgment the first 30 seconds what my answer will be to this, you know, without listening the whole thing. And one more thing that really helps, having organizational awareness, like where you are, what the setting is, what kind, you know, and understanding your situation and those things. So these are the ways that we can improve ourselves. And as you said, you know, self-control is a big thing when it comes independently to us, you know, having transparency, not doing one thing and is saying another, or say one thing, you know, be who you are. That, you know, what Sean was talking about, having that light guiding you, you know, have a north, you know, who you are, and be true to yourself. Transparency is being true to yourself and being true to people around you. Be genuine. People see this. You know, a lot of us try to fool each other when we're around one another. But, you know, people, as soon as you sit and you talk in front of someone, they know whether you're real or not. You know, having, you know, and when it's really important when you do well, when you have an achievement and you're like, you know what, I really dealt really well with that. Patches, you know, you made you know, if something you've been working on and usually you snap on, and now you controlled yourself, you listened and you gave a good feedback back, and, you know, have that achievement, give yourself the credit that you know, and, you know, credit is like chips at a poker table. You're kind of building credit for yourself, you know, and you feel good and you do better at it every time. And, you know, and have an initiative, you know, it's not going to happen just because, you know, we talked about this seminar, and I'll put a couple of books and read the book, you know, I listen to a book 24/7, but if I genuinely don't put, you know, don't say hi to someone that I feel like maybe they're down, hey, what's going on? Then I'm not really doing it. You know, listening at a book, it's like, you know, buying a gym membership and hoping to grow muscles without going to it, you know? So you gotta show up at the gym. Yeah, you can have all these things, but you have to do them. And optimism, you know, it doesn't matter. This too shall pass. You know, it doesn't matter what you think it's hitting you so hard, and today is miserable. It's gonna be, guess what? This will pass. I've made it through here. You know, I have a sweet lady work at our office here, and she's telling me a story how she lost a, you know, 14-year-old daughter to cancer. You know, it's, if we can make through something like that, you know, and we can live on, I don't think there's, you know, nothing else gonna hang around. If something like that passes, go ahead, Sean.
Yep. So I just wanted to add to that. I think Caroline, definitely a great question. You know, great question. I think I will say this, that we're all born with all these traits and emotional leadership and everything. I think everybody's born with that. But what happens is, you know, once we turn one, and depending on our surroundings and depending on our friends and our family, a lot of that stuff gets stripped away. Because, and you start watching people with different masks. I think what WhatsApp was talking about, every day, so somebody's one way on Monday, then they're a different person on Tuesday, then there's somebody else on Thursday night, then Saturday you see them, they different, Sunday they totally different. I think as we grow up through our childhood and teenage years and young adults, we've accumulated all these different people in our lives. So once we become adult, now we got 15 different masks on, so we don't know how to control our emotions. So I say, Caroline, I think everybody's born with it, but it's based on your environment till you get to this point, true story. I went through that myself. When I started, 20 years ago, thinking about where were some of my ways coming from, and then I went all the way back, to my childhood and just started thinking about, why do I do things the certain way? Why do I get upset about some of the small things? I'm gonna tell you a true story. One time, I don't know what it was, but one time I came home, and I had a sweet tooth. I couldn't wait to get home and get them chocolate chip cookies. You know what I'm saying? I went in the refrigerator. Y'all know those long baked cookies that you bake in the oven and stuff like that. I went in there and I seen nothing but a little crumb in there. Well, I about went off. I was just so upset, and I was trying to figure out where that was coming from. I got so heated, but then I realized, when I was growing up, I used to see people get mad about small things, so then now I was catching myself looking in the mirror that I was getting mad about small things, and I had to fix it. So I had to take one of those masks off, and I think that's something that we got to remember, is that sometimes we're conditioned that way, and then we end up on autopilot and we end up acting that way. So Dr. X, I think you want to add something?
Yeah, real quick. I know we don't have much time left. I'm Dr. X. I focus on self-leadership development coaching. In a nutshell, how do you inspire, empower, and uplift your damn self? Now, I know some of you all, it's like, what does that mean? No, that doesn't mean stop praying, stop going to church, stop taking your blood pressure medication, stop going to therapy. But as you see over my shoulder, the acronym MESS UP. MESS UP is an acronym for mental, emotional, spiritual, social, universal, and physical. So today with WhatsApp, he's talking about the emotional piece, which is, for example, when you're catabolic or when you have negative energy, that's more you feeling like a victim or an instigator. Most of our society resonates between levels 1 and 2. Level 1, you feel like a victim. My life sucks, I lose. Level 2, you know what? No, you're the reason my life sucks. And so you start lashing out. So you go from feeling depressed to feeling stressed. So I just wanted to point out that there are 6 types of stress that mess up the way that we show up. And emotional stress is just one of them. But as you can see, the P, physical, can affect your emotions, and your emotions can affect your physical. So I just wanted to throw that out there because it's holistic health that WASF is kind of giving us a deep dive into the emotional piece, and I appreciate that. Over.
Thank you.
WhatsApp.
Thank you, Dr. Bruce. Thank you very much. So as we were talking about, like, I've seen the change of myself, when I was, like Sean was talking about, when we were younger, a certain way, then even, let's say, between me 20 to 35, I was operating restaurants, I had employees under me, and I was the person that felt like, the more I scream, the more production I get out of my employees. That's what I felt like, that's who I was at that time. So, and my brother used to joke, he's like, which one of the servers did you make cry today? But then between 35 and 45, where I realized where things happen, and you realize in your life that, you know what, I have to take responsibility 110% of my life at all time. Where I'm at, doesn't matter what. Once you come up to that understanding and understand that awareness of it, and as Dr. Bruce was saying, we can't blame others, and we can't really blame ourselves, because whatever was on our past is part of us, who we are. We have to accept and acknowledge who we are. Once we accept and acknowledge who we are, then we can move forward and influence and be good to people around us. And once we're good to people around us, that same replicates and comes right back to us. And you wouldn't imagine the difference you will see. You will see it yourself over time, low at a time. It's just like anything else. It's step at a time, and you will see evidence of it. And as you see it, and the better you get at it, the more you do it. Genuinely using people's name. People are proud of their names. You know, when you're shaking hands, genuinely asking how people are doing. Being genuine when you're calling a friend or when you're meeting them somewhere. So these things, yes, some of us may be better at it from the moment we're born and from our surrounding, and some of us maybe by the time we get to our adulthood, not as good. But the beauty of it is we all can improve on and get better at.
Wasef, can you share a little bit with the group on steps that we could take to help manage our emotions? What are some things that we can do throughout the day?
So what is the one emotion that really, you know, that gets the worst of us? It's aggression, right? So whenever we come across something and this thing is gonna drive us nuts and we're about to blow up and, you know, end up at the sergeant major's office, right? So, you know, one of the biggest thing is breathing. Simple, I know we hear it all the time. So breathing is, yes.
Actually, something I heard was in and I said, yeah, we all good. I thought he was ending the call. And he wasn't. I don't know. I ain't answer no call.
Mr. Jermaine, I think your mic is on. Go ahead, Wasef.
So, you know, you slow down, you know, you kind of slow yourself down before you do that immediate reaction. We always talk about, you were talking about time, right? Time, give it time. Don't have that immediate. So what are you gonna do during that time? You know, do a breathing exercise, calm yourself down. You calm yourself down before you have, so during that time, you can kind of separate both those intellect and emotional situation and divide it up. That way your decision that comes after that is more intact to what you actually want instead of being an emotional decision. That's just a reaction. You don't want it just to be a reaction to something, right? So you do a breathing exercise, you do a 5-10 minute into your nose, out of your mouth. You kind of fill your belly up with the air, let your lungs get it, and that way it gets to your brain, it gets your neurons kick in, and you can kind of put yourself back at a level where you need to be. All right? People, what they do, they count. You know, you're counting one, you do it slowly, you just kind of bring yourself back. You're talking yourself back down from that Hulk moment, as Sean was saying. You know, you bring yourself down. You instead of reacting, you're sitting in a meeting and someone is presenting a project that you don't agree with and you're about to say something, count it down. Just count to 10 before you're gonna blur out something and that person's offended and all of a sudden you got repercussions that you got to deal with, right? For a 5 second of pleasure, because we want to give into that reaction of pleasure. For that split second, we're gonna deal with what falls, the fallout of the situation, right? So we count. You know what people do in meetings? They bring a little drink or something because they want to buy time. You don't want to react right away. If you're sitting in a meeting or something, make sure you got a beverage with you. Take a little sip at it. So you can't talk while you're taking a sip. You know, your reaction's not gonna be good to whatever the question was, whatever the situation was. Reaction's not gonna be good. What's the tip of your tongue, as we say? Take a sip, a little drink. You do that. Writing down. Understand what triggers us. Write it down exactly. You know what, this person did this or that happened. You put it on paper. You look at it. Some of us are visual. We look at it. What the situation. Then, as we're reading it back, then a better solution comes than the immediate solution that was gonna come out right away. So all these things kind of falls. Time is the solution, you know, time and having your body right before you make that reactionary decision. All right? Go ahead, Sean.
Oh no, I was just gonna just kind of
We
echo
get
what you
about
were
5
saying
minutes. So what we got, so at the end of the day, this is the equation, right? We come across a situation. So the situation plus our reaction equals the outcome. Every time. Where we sit, where we are, what we end up with, what happens is the result of our reaction. Our reaction decides it, you know? My boyfriend broke up with me. How you ended up in jail? Because I went and punctured his tires and scratched his car. So why do you ended up in jail? Because you went and scratched. You see the reaction, our reaction to things would change everything, Why did you get fired? Well, my supervisor was telling me do extra stuff, and you know what? I just walked out. So you didn't get fired because you're supervisor. You got fired because you walked out of your job. Your reaction of the situation caused you losing your job. So just remember that every time you're in a situation, just understand what a reaction will equate to what result. And is that result something we want? So if you don't want that result, you have to change your reaction to it. Go ahead, Sean.
No. I was just going to say, I know as we get ready to close today's session, I definitely want to open it up around the room, see if anyone has any comments that they would like to share with the group before we go into closing remarks.
Just real quick, thank you for the time. I like that of recognize what will occur if you allow the emotion to take hold. Personally, that's the most important thing to me. I'm going to be getting kicked off. My laptop's going through the automatic update. So I just wanted to, again, thank you all for your time today. I really appreciate it, and have a great day.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Miss Erica.
How you doing? And good morning, Sean. Before you say hello, and my computer died, but I think that this was a very good class that we went over today, and it is something that's very important, especially when it comes to us in our professional careers as well as business. So this is something that I actually communicate a lot with on my platforms. So I know someone asked about like different things that we can actually do or utilize to be able to boost our emotional intelligence. I do have some ebooks that I'm actually going to send in the email on the email traffic to everyone, so you all can use those.
Good deal. Thank you.
No problem.
All right, we have about 3 minutes left. Anybody else want to share before we go into closing remarks?
Good. Thank you, Sean.
Okay.
Go ahead. Dr.
Hey,
Bruce,
Wasef.
thank you so much.
Wasef, you want to close it out?
So just, well, thank you to everyone for joining us today. Thank you. It was a pleasure talking with everyone. Just at the end of the day, we want, as veterans and as human beings, we just want to be successful out there. And the only way we kind of get there is as all of us be together, right? I put on my business card, I say, become someone at the service of others. Don't become someone at the expense of others, right? In the words of General. Read and work on yourself, and that's the biggest thing. If we make ourselves better, Jim Rohn, again, I love his quotes. It says, don't wish for life to be easier, wish for you to be better. So if we make ourselves better, life will be easier. All right, that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Miss Caroline, do you have anything?
Yes, thank you, Wasef and Sean, for presenting and organizing. I think this was a great start to this series that we have going on, and it was a great session today. I appreciate the resources that ended up in the chat. I think I saw somebody else kind of chimed in with a couple books there, and I see the Emotional Intelligence 2.0. So I really appreciate the discussion today, and I look forward to our future seminars. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, same. I would say I definitely appreciate everyone for attending. Our next session is on June 28th, 2022. It's going to be on decision making and decision managing. So we definitely look forward to that. Definitely want to thank everyone for attending. Wasef, I thank you for the great presentation today. Everyone that made comments and contributed to the chat room, I definitely appreciate that. We'll hope everyone have a great day and be safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right, everybody.